Hi, everybody, and welcome to U-Files podcast, Your Taxes Your Way. My name is Ida Celli, and I'm going to be your coordinator for this session. And today's topic is, do RSP loans make sense? And to talk about this topic is my colleague, Jerry Vitaratis. Hi, Jerry. How are you?
I'm pretty good, Ida. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Another tax season is knocking at our doors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if we look at the history of our podcast, you just see the gray just sneaking in slowly right here. From all the years of taxis, from all the tax seasons that have come around. I think next year it'll be all gray completely. It'll look like a frost giant or something.
Yeah,
By the time next year rolls around.
you know, they say white hair is a sign of wisdom, right?
Yeah, well, I'll try to convince my wife of that. But anyways, so what are we talking about? What are we
So
talking about,
today's
Ida?
topic is RSP loans. Does it make sense to take a loan and to maximize our RSPs for our tax returns?
Yeah, so I mean,
So let's
the
start.
short answer would be it depends, right? That's the
Mhm.
old dad joke that I keep cracking on all these podcasts, thinking that it's going to be funny eventually. Who knows? But eventually, but it is really the answer to every tax question is that it depends. It really depends on every person's situation. It can make sense in certain scenarios, and it doesn't make sense in other scenarios. And that's what we're going to discuss today.
Mhm.
Before I get into the strategies and what we do, let's have a look at essentially what is an RSP loan, right? I mean,
Right.
what am I doing essentially with an RSP loan? And what an RSP loan is, very simply put, is you're borrowing money from a financial institution, whether it's your bank, whether it's your broker. Okay. And you take that money and you essentially increase, by the amount of the loan, you increase your RSP contributions. Okay. And this can have, of course, several advantages to doing that. So if you're short on cash and you need to increase your RSP contribution in order to not have to pay any tax on your tax return, or to simply increase substantially your refund, this is where an RSP loan makes sense. And again, it's money you borrow. So it's not free money here. It's money you borrow, which you're going to pay interest from your financial institution and your bank that allow you to increase or top up your RSP contribution. Sometimes people use it literally just to fully contribute by using the loan itself.
Okay. And what are the strategies for these RSP loans?
Yeah, so these are the reasons, right? I mean, why would you do this? Okay, what would be the purpose of doing it? There's really three strategies that are popular right now that are widespread. If you Google it, essentially you'll find the strategy. And of course, this podcast comes from a blog article that we just recently wrote on ufile.ca. So we're basing it directly off of this blog article, and you could go to that blog article afterwards and get more details as to what we're talking about in this podcast. But really, the three strategies are: the one of them is a gross up loan, what's called the gross up loan. And essentially what a gross up loan is that you borrow just enough, okay, to essentially top up your RSP contributions, and then the increased refund that loan amount allows you to get by contributing it to your RSP allows you to essentially pay off the entire loan that you got from the financial institution. So normally you would have a portion that you paid out of pocket, that you contributed out of pocket, and then you're missing a certain amount. So then what you do is you take that loan, which again is called the gross up loan, and then you grab it to top up your RSP, and then you take your refund, basically the whole refund that you get by the amount that you contributed and the amount that and the extra amount that you contributed based off of the loan, and you pay off practically the entire loan altogether. And that's a great strategy in that case, because essentially the loan is not going to be long. All you're going to do is wait for the government to refund you on your tax return, and then you simply grab that refund and pay off the entire loan, or almost. Sometimes, it's not perfect, obviously,
Mhm.
but you could pay off almost the entirety of the loan through what's called the gross up loan. It depends on the amounts, essentially. The next one is what we call a top up loan. And the top up loan is, let's say you contributed a certain amount to your RSP during the year, and you're usually good at maximizing your RSP contributions every single year. So you're basically maximizing based on your yearly amount. You've maximized it one year after the other. But now you're kind of short on cash. Okay. And you say, you know what? I don't want to miss contributing fully to my RSP and using up my entire yearly RSP contribution limit. So I'm going to grab a loan, which is called again the top up loan, and I'm going to make the difference through the loan and use up my yearly contribution limit. I contribute that amount. Of course, I'm increasing my refund. I'm increasing my refund by putting the loan amount directly into my RSP contribution. Remember that an RSP contribution is a deduction on your tax return, which means that you are reducing, the tax that you're going to pay. So, for example, you made $50,000 in a year. You put in $5,000. You're going to get taxed on 45,000 instead of 50. So you take essentially 5,000 times your tax rate. That's what an RSP deduction gets you as a tax reduction, okay, and as an increase of your refund. So you grab that, you top up, meaning you top it up till your limit, and then you use that increased refund again to pay off a good portion of your RSP loan. Now, usually with a top up loan, unlike a gross up loan, you don't usually pay up the entirety. It's not enough usually. That increased refund will not be enough to pay it fully one shot, but at least you'll be able to pay it off a substantial amount. You would have paid it off, and then you could pay off slowly within a year or two after that, through installments or whatever else you want to pay off that loan with. Now, the third one, and the riskier one in this case, but could be the most rewarding later on, depending, and we're going to see that with the advantages and the disadvantages, is what's called a catch up loan. And this is somebody, and the name says it all. This is somebody that has been lax in in basically contributing regularly to their RSP. They've accumulated a substantial amount of RSP limit because they have not been maximizing their RSP contributions every single year. And now they want to, as the strategy mentions, catch up. That's what they're trying to do. Okay, so what they do is they take a bigger loan to use up their entire accumulated limit. Because remember that when it comes to RSP contribution limit, if you don't use it, you don't lose it. You actually accumulate it and you can use it later on. It accumulates, and then you can actually literally just make one lump sum contribution to use up all that accumulated limit that you never used. And that's what the catch up loan does. So you take a big loan, you use up your entire lifetime limit up to that point. Okay, because of course you're creating limit over the year as the years go by. And then, of course, you get a really big tax reduction and a much bigger refund because it's a big lump sum that you're putting into your RSP, and then you use that increased RSP contribution to pay up the increased refund through the RSP contribution to pay your loan. But of course, because it's such a substantial loan, and usually it'll be a big amount, it'll take you more years to pay it back. And usually, people who will use the catch-up loan do it usually once in a lifetime. They won't do this regularly over the years, unlike the gross up and the top up, where people actually do this as a yearly strategy. Okay, whereas the catch up it's a once in a lifetime thing. I want to catch up to my limit, and I'm going to pay back slowly through the loan. First of all, by grabbing the increased refund, and then I'm going to pay back slowly over the years. So those are the strategies that people use. These are the strategies of the RSP loan.
No. Well, interesting. Um, Now, I'm sure there are advantages to do that, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's the purpose, right? Because you'll notice a theme with the three strategies that I mentioned before. The theme was I'm paying back my loan faster. Okay, that's what I'm doing because I'm contributing to my RSP and putting it in my investments. The increased contribution that I make increases my tax refund. And by increasing my tax refund, I can simply grab that amount, the entirety of my tax refund, and pay back my loan faster. And that's one of the big advantages, okay, of doing an RSP loan versus a run of the mill investment loan. Because if I use, for example, any other type of investment loan, let's say a taxable account, okay, I can deduct the interest if it's in a taxable account, but I can't get any tax reduction off of the off the amount of the loan that I'm investing. I can't do it because it is a taxable account. Meanwhile, when it comes to an RSP loan, I can't deduct the interest. I'm not allowed to do it because it's a tax sheltered account. But every dollar that I put in from that loan into my RSP gives me a tax reduction automatically because I'm increasing my RSP contribution. And therefore, due to that increase in my RSP contribution, I could pay back my loan faster because I could take that increased amount and simply stick it right into my loan payment. So that's one of the big advantages. And the common theme of why people do RSP loans is to use that increased refund to pay back their loan faster, unlike a run-of-the-mill investment loan in this case. Now, another reason, and it's actually a reason people are not necessarily aware of, is that there's also lower interest rates when it comes to RSP loans. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's take the example of an investment loan or an RSP loan, or let's say any loan you take, whether it's a credit line, whether it's a home equity line of credit, you can take that money and put it wherever. Okay, investment loans the same kind of thing where you could grab it and put it almost wherever. Okay, but an RSP loan, usually the way it works is that you go to your financial institution, they give you that RSP loan, and then you invest it with that financial institution or your broker. So what happens is your financial institution wins twice by offering you the loan. Number one, they're charging you interest for the time it takes you to pay back the loan. Number two, you're investing with them, which means that they will charge their fees for their investments. So due to that, the bank wins twice. So because they're winning twice, they're going to offer you a lower interest rate because they want to entice you to come with them and to invest with them and to use their investment products. And one way to do that is by offering you a lower interest rate than a market rate that you would find on a credit line, for example, or in any other type of investment loan, because they're locking the money in with them. You are, first of all, paying them interest while you haven't paid your balance. And then number two, you're investing with them and they're charging you investment fees. That's another reason. Now, another reason for the advantage is of course, time value of money. It's compounding. We know the magic of compounding. What's the expression, right? Compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And that's for good reason. Okay. Because the more time your investments stay tax sheltered and continue to gain, the more eventually you will have. Remember, they've done many, many studies over the years where they found that people who start early and invest for a while, then they stop, versus somebody who starts later on in their life and continues to invest throughout. The person who started early more often than not will beat out performance wise the person who starts later on in life and continues to contribute. If you don't believe me, just Google it. Study after study will show you those results. So the fact that you are now getting increased funds that you can now invest in your tax sheltered account allows now more time and more funds and more time to be invested and to compound. So you are compounding essentially your returns. So that's another reason why it's so advantageous to use an RSP loan, is because you're taking more funds and it allows you to have more funds to invest and for a longer period of time as well.
Okay, with advantages, there's always a disadvantage. Nothing is actually perfect, right?
No, of course, if only, right? If only.
Yeah,
And
of
then
course. If
then there wouldn't
only.
be any financial planners in this world, right? I mean, that's what it
Correct.
is. There's no, for with everything, there's pros and cons, right? With anything in life,
Anything.
and there's that which is the advantages, disadvantages. It's the same with RSP loans. Remember that with RSP loan is still a loan. You're borrowing money in order to invest. So here's the catch, though. What if your investments don't do well? Let's say you borrowed money in the middle of 2008, just before the mortgage bubble burst. What happens then? For the next 2, 3 years, your investments are doing this. Okay, they're
Hmm.
tanking. Okay, so now here's your problem: is that now you're compounding your losses. Okay, because why? Number one, you still have a loan to pay. Okay, so you still have an amount that you owe to your financial institution. Now, remember, your RSP deduction allows you to pay it off faster. That's the great news. But chances are, especially if you took a catch-up loan, you're going to owe the money for years. So now the problem is you owe money on investments that have gone down in value and not up. So your loan is worth more than what the investments are in your RSP. So that's a big risk, okay? Because now you still have that loan to repay, and yet your investments are not reflecting. I gave the rosy picture of compounding interest when everything goes up, but remember,
Of course.
things go down as well.
Hmm.
Okay, it goes both ways. We always have recessions, right? 2008 was one. The year 2000 was one as well. Okay, so and then look at the pandemic, 2020, right? So in those cases, you are now compounding your risk, because if you had just invested out of your pocket to your RSP, you don't owe anything. you've paid
Right.
it, and then okay, it's going down in value, you have the patience of waiting. But if you borrowed and now the money's losing money, it's worth less than what you borrowed, it's no different than if you take a mortgage for a house that loses value. It's exactly the same thing. You owe more than what the asset is worth. And that's always risky, okay, financially. Always, always risky. The second one is, of course, interest costs. Remember, it's a loan. The bank or the financial institution is going to charge you interest as long as you have a balance. And that interest is an expense. It's a cost that's coming out of your pocket. And we know that right now, the cost of everything has gone up. Okay,
Hmm.
just go to the grocery store, just go to any service you need, wherever you are right now. The cost of everything has gone up. You are now adding to those costs your interest expense as well. Okay, as long as you have the balance. So interest cost is a serious consideration. The third one is kind of related to the first one, which is increased debt. Okay, because it is debt. Yes, you're using it for a good cause. Okay, you're taking that money, you're investing it for your future. And on top of it, you're actually increasing your tax refund at the same time, which you might think it's great. Absolutely. But as long as you have a balance in that account, in that with that RSP loan, okay, it's still debt, which means it gets added to your credit card debt, to your mortgage debt, to your car payment debt, to all these things. And that could, that could cause a lot of pressure for you, especially when it comes to a credit rating or making payments to those other debts as well. Okay, so that's another risk that you have to consider, a disadvantage that you have to consider when it comes to these RSP loans.
Okay, so in general, let's summarize. Is it worthwhile or not? Yeah.
So, like I said, it depends. Okay, there's no
Hmm.
clear cut answer. It is a case by case basis. Okay, so it'll depend on your financial situation. Excuse me, not your financial institution. They're winning either way, right?
They're
So,
winning, right?
yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter for them. It's just win, 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 ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Doesn't matter for them. But it depends on your situation. If you're a lower income individual, okay, that's struggling to make ends meet. Okay, you have debts, you have credit card debts as well, you have other debts, you're struggling making payments, for example, whether it's your debts or servicing your debt, or whether it is just your day-to-day expenses. It's taking out RSP loan can be very risky. Yes, you're increasing your refund, it's great, you're getting money back, but remember, the loan is going to be there. And the point of doing the RSP loan is that you grab that increased refund and you're using it to pay off your debt quicker. Okay, but the other debts remain. Okay, you're not paying those off faster. Okay, so the key is, if you're a lower income individual who's struggling with day to day with debt and with day to day expenses, I would not recommend it. Okay, because you're adding now another debt, and if another 2008 happens, you're only compounding your problem. Okay, because now your investments are worth less than what the loan that you took out is worth. Okay, so at that point it becomes very risky. Now, if you're middle to higher income and your debt is under control. Okay, so yeah, you might have a mortgage, you might have some credit card debt, maybe you have a car loan. Okay, but in general, you're able to breathe. Your head is well above water, as we say. Okay, then in that case, an RSP loan does make sense in order to top up your RSP contributions, because now the advantages really kick in. Okay, the time value of money, the fact that you have more funds to invest for a longer period of time, the fact that you can use that RSP deduction and the increased refund in order to pay off your debt faster. Okay, so for all these things, and with all these things combined, it makes sense in that case. Again, though, as long as your debt situation is under control. Okay, as long as you don't have too much debt, especially consumer debt, you don't have too much consumer debt, and you're able to easily afford your car payments, your mortgage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In that case, it makes sense because of those advantages. Again, you're contributing, you're increasing your tax refund, and you're grabbing that increased tax refund, and you're paying off your loan faster.
So, in other words, the basic thing you need to know is, are you able to control your debt?
It all comes back to that. Yeah, because debt is risk. No matter what, debt is
Hmm.
risk. Because remember, you could take that debt, and the moment a calamity happens in your life, you get injured, you can't work anymore, you get laid off. Okay, all these things will happen, and remember, the debt doesn't disappear. Okay, all that's happening is now you can't service that debt anymore. Okay, so if you're worried about things like that, don't do it because it's still debt. Yes, it's more advantageous than other debt because you're increasing your tax refund. You can pay it off faster. And on top of it, you're using it to make investments, which should pick up in value over the years and allow you a retirement fund. But if you feel it's too risky because of something that might happen, if, like you said, if you can't service your debt, if you're up to here with your debt right now and with your day-to-day expenses, it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's still debt. And if the worst happens, and if you don't have an emergency fund, and if you can't survive not being employed for 3, 4, 5 months, in the 3, 4, 5 months, then don't do it because all you're doing is just compounding your debt.
All right. So that was pretty interesting. So I think that covers our podcast for today. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to remind everybody that what we just mentioned there, all the details are on our website, which is at ufile.ca. Just go to our blog directly with our UFile blog. Okay, it's in the tips and tricks tab. Just hover over it. You're going to see UFile blog, and we have a detailed article explaining exactly what I just mentioned in this podcast. And we're going to have a link in the description as well of the podcast as well.
Perfect. So thank you very much, Jerry. That concludes our podcast for today. So see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. All right, that went really well.